Good evening and welcome to the July 16th meeting of the Committee on Policing and Community Engagement. Thanks to all of you who have joined us. I see we have quite a list of attendees. We're happy to have you with us. I'm going to call this meeting to order. And the first thing I'd like to do is to read the instructions on how you can participate in the meeting as a public representative. So members of the public who wish to share feedback during the public comment period must do so by using the Raise Your Hand feature in the Blue Jeans application, which will allow for either audio or audio-visual participation. Members of the public may also share their written comments with committee staff in advance of the meeting by sending them to communications@unioncity.org. Comments sent into the committee staff in advance will be read into the record during the public comment period. This meeting will be streamed live to the City of Union City Facebook page. However, we will not be monitoring or accepting public comments through Facebook during this meeting. Roll call, please. Emma?
Yes. Vice Mayor Emily Duncan.
Here.
Councilmember Pat Gakoskos.
Here.
Commissioner Melissa Schwen-Mallory.
Here.
Commissioner Michelle Williams-Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Jonathan Petty.
Here.
Okay, thank you. So next on the agenda is our first opportunity for public comment. We will have two public comment sections. We'll have one now and one later in the program after we've had an opportunity to hear from our guest speakers. So if you'd like to speak, this opportunity to hit the raise the hand button, and Emma will acknowledge you and we will welcome your comments. Emma, do we have any comments at this time?
There are no comments at this time.
Okay. Then we're going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is online feedback sent to the committee. As I mentioned in my opening comments, items that are sent to us through the website or through an email about the committee or thoughts on things we should know about or do will be read into the meeting. And tonight, Lauren will go over the significant or actually all the comments that we received since our last meeting. Lauren?
Yes, thank you. I will be going over, it's either 5 or 6 comments, so bear with me because I really want to make sure to get through all of them. Some of them are short and some of them are a little long. So let me start, and I'm going to mostly keep everybody anonymous, except I do want to, this first person I want to name out loud because it was somebody that the committee had invited to speak, and instead of coming to speak to the committee, he sent some written communication in. So this is from Jaime Jaramillo, the Executive Director of Centro de Servicios. He wrote into the committee, in late 1998, I attended a community-oriented policing and problem-solving training held at Lake Mammoth, California. I was one of 2 civilians attending the training. I was invited to attend because of my involvement as a resident of Union City and executive director of Centro de Servicios. At the time, we were celebrating the rebirth of our agency thanks to the help of UCPD and the city. Since the beginning of our rebirth, there was discussion about establishing a resource center and the involvement of Centro with the police department and the community in selecting their officers to work within the COPS program and the expansion of citizens and police community problem-solving teams working together to improve the quality of life for all Union City residents. As a result of this program, UC won 3 state Helen Putnam Awards for excellence in public service delivery in graffiti abatement, police community relations, and gang violence prevention programs. We also won the prestigious All-American City Award presented by the National League of Cities. And last but not least, an in-person commendation by Janet Reno, Attorney General of the United States, to the Union City police officers, executive staff, and chief of police for the successes in the COPS program development and implementation. I am respectfully suggesting that a similar program be reintroduced to the Union City community, including CBOs, to continue improving police-community relations, communication, cooperation, and trust. I also suggest to the committee to revisit the documentation and records on how COPS was conceived and implemented, and use it as a model or an upgraded contemporary program that can be recommended to citizens and civic leaders as a tangible work product. All right, let me move on through the list here. So the rest of the folks here, just because they were members of the public that sent communication in, I'm not going to name names. So starting with one that came into us, now more than ever, we need our UCPD. We need our police officers in full force, keeping our city safe and free of crime. Anyone choosing to abuse the law, intentionally hurt others, and commit crimes should be held accountable to the full extent of the law. Hopefully, more law enforcement and officer visibility in our community will deter individuals who willingly cause mayhem and unwanted violence. Our men and women in blue should be paid more and well-staffed. Thank you, UCPD, for your service. The next comment. Does Union City have a requirement that police officers live within the city? If not, why not? What is the current percentage of police officers living in Union City? When will there be a push to increase the number of officers living in Union City? The next comment. What kind of departments or services can we create to alleviate the demand for police officers for non-emergency calls? Although Union City does not have a history of many fatal police violence incidents, as far as I've seen in statistics, policing can still be changed to improve the quality of life in this city. By splitting off some of the responsibilities that police officers have currently and creating additional divisions with staff who have expertise in specific local community issues, mental health, de-escalation, police officers can then be freed up to address the more serious crimes that require more enforcement, and more minor complaints will be able to be addressed by the new divisions instead of being ignored. Also, it would be prudent to survey and measure Union City resident sentiments towards the police to see where more trust needs to be built, i.e. specific neighborhoods that may be patrolled differently than others, and address how to build that trust. I will try to attend next Thursday's meeting to bring these issues up and want to express my sincere appreciation for the formation of this committee and your openness to hear from the community. It shows Union City's commitment to improving policing from the local level. And I have two more comments to read. Next comment. I feel Union City has a great police department and we have a great city council. I feel with the police department there needs to be more outreach and race-based training in the Black and Brown community here in Union City. Being an African American man who was born and raised in Union City and almost 30 years old, I have seen Union City grow into a diverse community. I have had about 4 peaceful encounters with police here, and each one has ended peaceful, and I've always been a good guy and stayed out of trouble. I am going to be honest with you, each of my 4 times I had to deal with police, I was afraid and scared, and it shouldn't be that way. I have a neighbor who lived in Union City for 50 years or more, and he remembers when police used to be more of a mentor and be there to help people out. Bottom line, we need to have that same relationship with police in place, again, with citizens and young people. I think also there should be more resources for students in New Haven schools and mentorship programs down at City Hall and the police department. And finally, our final comment sent in to us. Hello to all. My husband and I are attending the weekly gatherings for the Policing and Community Engagement Committee and applaud you for these. I was recently sent an email by a friend with a link to Barack Obama's article published on Medium, and they provided the link to us. The article is called How to Make This Moment the Turning Point for Real Change. Further down in the article, he offers a link to a report and a toolkit developed by the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights based on the work of the Task Force on 21st Century Policing while he was in the White House. I thought perhaps this toolkit would offer some constructive help for the committee and for those of us joining in. And this individual shared the link with us. And that concludes.
Thank you, Lauren. So there were a lot of excellent ideas in the messages that we received. Many of them we will address here at the committee. We'll follow up on the information on the toolkit. We have a member of the committee that's going to do that research for us, bring it back to the committee next week so that we can all see if there's anything in it that would be useful and beneficial to Union City to think about and implement. The other items that were mentioned, all of the suggestions and items that you write into us, we will respond to them, and we will do it in a variety of ways. We'll either do the research or we'll bring someone in specifically to speak to the issues that are in the written communication. So if you have thoughts and you don't want to share them with us publicly, please send them in to us and know that we will act on them. All right, we're going to move on to new business, and new business is the opportunity for us to listen to the community. We call them listening sessions. Tonight we have 3 members of the community who have agreed to join us and share with us their perspectives about Union City policing, about issues, concerns, and most importantly, recommendations or suggestions for things that the committee might consider recommending when we make our recommendation to the City Council. So our first speaker tonight, we have 3 speakers, and our first speaker tonight will join us from the school district. It's important for us to reach out and hear from all the stakeholders in the city. So we will have a person join us from the school district. We will have someone join us from our local youth and family program here in the city. And we will have a local pastor join us to bring us some thoughts from a community faith leader. So our first speaker is Manny Allen. It's my understanding that he is a Black Studies teacher at James Logan High School and has some thoughts and ideas that would be beneficial for us to hear. So Emma, if you could acknowledge and bring him up as a speaker, that would be great.
Yes, Manny, so I'm going to promote you to a speaker. There's going to be a little bit of a lag. That's normal. And once you start speaking, you'll have 10 minutes, and I'll give you a 1 minute heads up when you have 1 minute left.
Manny's she.
Yeah.
I see the name was promoted, but I don't see. Manny, are you there?
I'm here.
Oh,
yes, I'm here.
Manny, you have
Yes.
your video set so that we can see you?
Sure, I think. Okay, wait a minute. It says that it's on.
Says that your video is on.
Yes, let me see if it works now. There, can you see me now?
I can
Okay,
see you
awesome.
now. And let me just say that we thought we were going to have a man join us. I'm so pleased to see that you are here with us. You're not a man, and let me apologize to you and welcome you very much for being here with us, Manny.
Thank you. So
The floor is yours.
It's Manuela. I go by Manny because it's just easier. So
Manuela. Now that would have helped us out if we knew that.
Right.
So our apologies to you for suggesting it was a man. So you have the floor. Welcome.
Thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to you all about this. I wanted to start with just my first interaction with the Union City Police, and it happened in 1975, not 1975, excuse me, it was 1979. And it was when my mom had my brother and I in the car. I was 4, my brother was 5, and my mom, who is Dorothy Allen, and was a teacher at James Logan High School. We were driving by Logan, and at the library, she was pulled over, and she was forcibly removed from the car and told to lay down on her stomach, her head to the ground, and the police officer pulled out a gun and had a gun on her. And that was my first experience with really any police officers, and I didn't know what was going on. Me and my brother, we didn't know. My mom was talking to us, telling us, just be calm, don't worry about it. You know, she has this gun to her head. And so that has just kind of been my life with the Union City Police. I have been pulled over numerous times, and one time when I was working at Alvarado Elementary, I was driving home and a cop pulled me over, and he didn't have a reason for pulling me over. He said he was just checking to make sure I was okay. And I didn't understand why. Why are you checking to make sure I'm okay? Because knowing how the Black community and cops are interacting, it was a scary experience for me, especially because of the way I started my knowledge of the police. Fortunately, I have a mom who is very open about how society treats Black people. And she never hid it from us. And she always let us know that we were going to be treated differently because of who we were and what we looked like. She, being an intelligent woman, always pushed us to go to school and to learn. And so I never doubted my intelligence because of my mom. So very fortunate to have her. So there's a lot of things that have happened with the police here in Union City. I can't say that I've really had a positive experience with them. I mean, they haven't all been negative, but I wouldn't say I walked away from any of them like, yeah, that was great. You know, there's always been that panic. I always have a panic inside when it comes to them. So I wanted to really, really focus on recommendations that I feel need to happen. And I think the first thing that needs to happen is there needs to be continued conversations between the police and the community. The police, they need to talk to our young folks. They need to know our young folks. They need to know where our young folks are coming from. Because a lot of times I feel like when the police are approaching our young kids, especially the Black and brown kids, they're approaching them with a preconceived notion about who these kids are, and they don't know. I worked at Alvarado Elementary for over 20 years, and I now have moved to Logan because I took over for my mom and what she taught. And a lot of the Black and brown kids, they talk to me and they tell me how they feel like the Union City Police have it in for them. You know, there's this assumption about who they are and what they're going to do. And the kids are not allowed to be kids. They're not allowed to make kid mistakes. And I'm not talking about like going and robbing somebody. I'm talking about just being a kid. They're not allowed to do that. Over at the BART station, a lot of things happen there, and the kids will come back and be like, you know, I wasn't even doing anything. I was just standing there, but because I'm Black, they came to me and they want to start hassling me. So I think that the police, they need to listen to the kids. They need to listen to the kids. They need to hear what they have to say, and it needs to be a situation where kids are talking and the police are listening. They don't need to say anything. They just need to listen. And they need to come in with a clear mind, and they need to come in with their defenses at the door. Leave them at the door and just listen. Listen to what they have to say. In addition to listening to our students, they also need to go into the Black and brown communities, and they really do need to speak or listen to what folks have to say, because a lot of us, we don't feel safe. We do not feel safe with the police. They're not they're not who I feel they should be. Watching them drive around town and, they got their glasses on and there is this air about them. And if I had an issue, I don't think I would go to them. I'd have some problems going to them. So if they're able to do that, I think they will, they will humanize themselves to the community, but also they need to make sure that they are not dehumanizing the community. They need to make sure that they are looking at us as people who are not necessarily trying to do wrong, but we're trying to live. We're trying to, do what we do. So I think until we're able to do that, until they're able to sit and listen to the community, especially our young folks, I don't know what else we'll be able to do. I started a list and it was like, yeah, get out into the community, treat the kids like human beings, stop assuming. But if you don't look at me and see a person, then you don't look at me and see a person. There's no change is going to happen from that. So I think that is pretty much what I had to say. And I really do once again appreciate the opportunity to speak out about this because Union City's been home forever. I went to Long Beach and when people would ask me, where are you from? And I'd say Union City and they'd be like, where is that? And I'd have to tell them, well, between San Francisco by Oakland. And they're like, oh, you're from Oakland. Okay, yeah. So, Union City, it's a very good town and I love living here and I love growing up here, but things do need to change. And I think it's going to start with our young kids, with the young people.
So I thank you for your comments. They were valuable and important, and we will make a note of them. And if we have any follow-up questions, we'll be back in touch with you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Manny.
Our next speaker is Nancy George. Nancy is the executive director of the Family Center here in Union City, which is also connected to it and affiliated with the New Haven School District. So if you could bring Nancy on, that would be great.
Okay, Nancy, I'm going to promote you to a speaker. There's going to be a little bit of a lag, and then we'll start your 10 minutes.
Hi, Nancy, are you on? I saw that you were promoted to speaker. Can you hear us?
Can you hear me yet?
I can hear you now and I can see you. Welcome, Nancy.
Oh, good.
Thank
now I got
you so much.
see how I can get back to seeing you.
Okay, you can see us. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening, Vice Mayor Duncan. It's nice to see you. It's been a while, and all of my friends on the City Council and with the Community Relations Commission, Emma. I appreciate being here, and I absolutely enjoyed seeing my friend Manny share her experiences with you, because one of the things I wanted to start and end with is that although I work closely and intimately with the Union City community, my experience is going to be very different than that of Manny, because clearly I am not a person of color and I don't live in Union City. But I do spend most of my life in Union City through my job. And I can definitely share with you what we have seen with the community that we serve. I am at the Family Center, and we work with all kinds of families who have needs that they may need some assistance getting met, who have had struggles in their lives, who have hit a temporary bump in the road or barrier, And we try to work hand in hand with the community to make sure that they have everything they need to be as successful as possible. The Union City Police Department has been one of our partners from the onset of starting the Family Center in 2012. And I want to start by saying we appreciate that partnership, and it has been a really helpful partnership. And that's not to say that everything has always been wonderful and perfect, but it has been a good and strong partnership. And I have seen the police department shift over those years to placing a higher priority on community engagement, and I also appreciate that. The Family Center has tried to work as a bridge between agencies like the police department and the community. And in doing so, we have invited the police department in many times to meet with the community, to attend events with the community, to be a part of the community. And I think when that has happened, it has been helpful and successful. We've hosted the Explorers program on our campus. They were partners with us on a huge event that blocked traffic for miles called Feed the Children during the holidays this past year, and there had to be traffic control and support around that, and they were there for us to help us manage and get out hundreds of boxes of food to families. Appreciated that. And we have hosted forums where they shared information with the community about youth violence and other topics that are important to community members. But given all of that, there continues to be an uneasiness in the community with the police department for many of the reasons that Manny spoke about. It's mostly about a lot of history in the community, especially in the Dakota community, between the community and the police department historically. Challenges and the hurts and wounds from that have not ever completely gone away. It's also based on personal experiences with the police department, and not all members of the police department. But unfortunately, a bad experience becomes the experience that then forms people's opinions and basically creates their fears. And also lots of fears around the issue of immigration status. And I know Union City has gone to great lengths to try to help allay those fears, but they still exist. So oftentimes when we have uniformed officers on our campus, it creates an uneasiness, it creates fears, and that's something that we have to continue to work on. Much like Manny, I want to focus on recommendations because I think there's still work to be done. And I had the opportunity to participate both in the department's strategic planning process and also in the hiring of a lieutenant. That's when Lieutenant Steve Mendez was hired. And I appreciated the invitation to be part of those processes and to be a community voice. And one of the things that came up through both of those opportunities was the idea of compassionate policing. And it goes along with what Manny was saying, really focusing on training that humanizes policing, that allows every interaction to be with a person, not with an incident. The person isn't the incident, and I think we need to just constantly be able to remind each other of that and to take that people first approach to de-escalate and to approach things from a compassionate perspective. And I think that part of the way that happens is stronger connections with the community and more opportunities for community voice. I mentioned 2 opportunities where I was able to participate, and both of those opportunities had a great deal of participation, but they were kind of what I would call the usual suspects participating. Those of us who are often at the podium, speaking up, comfortable with public speaking, engaged in community participation events. I think what needs to happen is outreach to people who wouldn't normally come to events like that, which means going into the community and participating in places where the community exists and is comfortable. We've had events in the past that were focused on bridging those relationships, but one of the difficulties, and I know I've had this conversation with some of my acquaintances at the police department, and I completely understand their perspective, but when you have the officers show up to a community engagement event and they're fully uniformed and in their bulletproof vests and fully armed, it is much more difficult to build that relationship. And I understand the safety concerns, and I don't know what the answer to it is, but I think it's a challenge that we need to think about and address. How do we build relationships in an approachable way so that people can share their experiences, good or bad, and feel comfortable with that? So I think reaching out for more youth voice, for more voice from some of our marginalized community members, being in the community in places or at events where the community has the comfort level to be themselves and to speak up and to be present, and really building that trust in a genuine way side by side. I really appreciated the comments from Jaime Jaramillo, and I have heard many people kind of harken back to a day when there was a big push for community services and policing to come together in a more integrated fashion. And I think once again, we're at a time where we need to lift that concept up. And I see much of the groundwork is there, and I think the desire is there. I can tell you that there have been times when I've called the police out for assistance when we've had community members who maybe were having some mental health related issues happening, or some drug or other substance related issues happening. And I've had experiences where the officers that showed up were incredibly compassionate and gentle and were really helpful in de-escalating the situation and helping us to get it under control. And I've had experiences where I regretted having made the phone call because the approach was too aggressive and actually escalated the situation. And so I think those are all things to think about regarding training, regarding connections to the community. But overall, I think we have a department that, if you know, I was part of the strategic planning. I know that the priorities are there for that compassionate and community engaged policing. But what does that look like when you roll it out? How do you ensure that every single officer embraces those values? I think that's part of the challenge. I really appreciate being allowed to speak tonight. And I hope more voices from other parts of the community have the opportunity and take the opportunity to come forward and share their views and make comments.
Nancy, we really appreciate you and your comments, and I know that you're a part of a collaborative where there are many voices in the community, and if any of your members have thoughts and ideas they'd like to share with us, please send us their name or suggest to them that they be in touch. This is an opportunity for us to hear from the community, so if you can help us with that, we'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us, Nancy. It's good seeing you again.
Absolutely, I'd be happy to do that.
Thanks.
Thank you, Nancy.
Okay, our next and final speaker this evening is Reverend Jerome Brown. Emma, if you would bring Reverend Brown on, that would be great.
Okay. It'll be a little bit of a lag, Reverend Brown.
Is Reverend Brown there?
No, Reverend Brown, I sent you an invite to request live. It should be a notification on your screen.
Just good.
So can we help Reverend Brown?
I will go ahead and give him a call too, just in case, and then we maybe continue. So I'm going to mute my audio just to give him a call and see.
Okay. So I think that while we're waiting on Reverend Brown, this would be a good opportunity to see if there are any comments from the committee that you'd like to share with us at this point while we're waiting to get Reverend Brown on. If you could unmute yourself, I can acknowledge you and we can begin a conversation until Reverend Brown joins us. Melissa, I see you're unmuted. Do you have some thoughts you'd like to share at this time?
Yes, I just want to take this time to thank the people that have already spoken. Thank you, Manny, for sharing your experiences and for really being open and vulnerable about your experiences with our police. And your feedback is extremely valuable. I really like all of your suggestions and appreciate them. And hope she'll come back at the end when we're having our conversations, and so maybe we can ask her some questions. And thank you, Nancy. Also thank you, Manny, for your service to the community as a teacher, and thank you, Nancy, for your service to the community and for the history of all the programs that you guys have done at the Family Center, and for all your recommendations on community to police relations and how we can improve that. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Pat, are you unmuted? Do you want to make a comment at this time?
Well, yeah, I put some notes, and the first comment from Jaime Jaramillo, and we make a comment on that even if he did not speak, because his suggestion about bringing back the COPS program, community policing program, is a good one. And we had that. I was one of those also involved when I was a member of the Human Relations Commission as chair of that commission. So I was one of those, I think, one of the members who I don't know if Alice started. I mean, part of the committee. So it's a good one. And then with Manny, I know your mom, Dorothy Allen. She's a nice lady, and she's very much involved in diversity program in James Logan. And I think she said that she wanted to visit the Philippines because she has connection to I think her grandfather or father was assigned in the Philippines. Anyway, your suggestions, I'm hoping that we can have a conversation with your suggestion to connect with the police department. I mean, police officers going to the Black and brown communities to talk to them, and hopefully this will change some of the bad experience, quote unquote, and or your impression of the Union City Police Department. So that's a very good suggestion. And with Nancy, you have great suggestions also. And especially you mentioned about, I know Melissa's mentioned some of them. For example, the uniformed officer visiting the classroom. Yeah, people are intimidated seeing a uniformed police officer because they always think that police officers are there to pick up or to catch someone who is doing something bad. So maybe if police officers would go and, as suggested, I don't know if that's your suggestion, Nancy, to visit without the full uniform with gun, and so I think that would help, and also especially dealing with people in Dakota who have, and some other part of the community that have experience with ICE. So if they see someone in uniform, they are afraid to talk to the police officers. So there are. I'm really happy with all the opportunities and also suggestions that all the speakers have given so far. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to come back and get the remaining comments from the committee. I see that we have our speaker with us. Welcome, Pastor Brown. It's good to have you with us. We look forward to hearing and learning from you. So the podium is yours.
Okay, let me make sure.
We can hear you.
Can you see me?
And we can see you, yes, sir.
Oh, that's a good thing. As everyone knows, I'm still behind on this social media and different things, but I'm glad to be a part of this meeting. The subcommittee, thank you for inviting me to this. This is very important. As many of you know, I've been a resident of Union City since 1969. So I go way back with the city. And if you take that the city birth was in 1959, so 10 years after the birth of Union City, I've been a resident here in Union City. I have served in many capacities, but my biggest capacity is pastoring. I'm a pastor. I have been blessed to formulate a pastors alliance, which works in Union City, and we have been a blessing to Union City, and we continue to be a blessing to Union City. And let me start off by saying I'm more out in the community, trying to speak and talk to as many as people as possible. I don't just stay on the African American side. I have spoken to Latinos. By my church being in Dakota, I'm stationed in Dakota. I try to work closely with the residents in Dakota. And what I have found out since that's been going on, I'm going to give you some testimonies from what people are saying to me, because it's very important, subcommittee, that we really, and you guys are doing a tremendous job, that we really get the heart of the community, And the heart of the community is just not isolated in one area. Like, it's just not Dakota, but you got Casa Verde, you got Seven Hills, you got Contempo, that's Union City. And our police department doing the best that they can with the manpower. I'm still going to be an advocate for them. We're still working under women, so let's just keep it real on that. And when you're working under man and under woman, you take on more hours, and fatigue can come in and different. So it's a lot of things. It's a lot of things that we can really look forward to. But I can truly say this, And I believe in my own heart, there is a mistrust. There is a mistrust. There's no getting around that. Speaking to young African males and speaking to young Latino males, they feel that they are being harassed for no reasons, and the police department, they do that because they feel that they can get away with it, to harassing people. I have even been throwing out the word from young people that they feel that they're being racial profiling going on and different things. Now, I can say this, speaking on some personal incidents that I have inquired with the city. If it's one thing I would suggest that we try to work on is, I enjoyed the previous speakers, Manny and the other speakers, about communication, because communication is huge. But just going into Dakota, just going into Casa Verde, just going into Seven Hills is not good enough. I was a part of the youth and family service. I was one of their mentors. I still do it, but I do it on a request basis. We used to do what we called a call out. And basically what that call out was, we used to bring all the at-risk young men, let me put it that way, who have had problems and different things. Matter of fact, I used to host it at my church. They used to come to my church. We used to offer them jobs, mentor them, the DA office be there, the police department be there. Everybody would be there to show these men support. And reason why I'm bringing that up, because we can go in to our cities and talk to different individuals, but there's are those at-risk young men and women that really needs, some type of communication, some type of knowing what the police department is all about. Another thing that I heard a little bit of it, but it's important, the mental health aspect of it. There's a lot of people in Union City dealing with just mental health. They can't really just, help themselves on a lot of things. And we got to have that empathy, sympathy, education, to help and teach these young men and women, because I'm going to be honest with you. I have talking to, I'm going to call them OGs, and I try to get a feel from the past to right now and to where can we go with this. A lot of people that's older feel that the relationship with the police department have always been there. There's no trust. If the police department don't like them, they'll move them out of Union City and different things. And I'm going to be honest with you, panel. I thought about that. I thought about that. How can something like that happen? And I know of a couple of incidents. Let me look at my notes. I knew of a couple of incidents personally that I was a part of. I received a phone call from an African-American family that was living in Contempo, and they called me and told me what was going on, and a individual shot up their home, and they had it on videotape. And so I was privileged to see the videotape, and I mean, it was a no-win situation. It was something that I think that should have been dealt with differently than the way that it was handled, personal. But we have to understand intimidation. That word I want for the police department to really study is tactics, how they do things, how you approach different individuals, how you handle it. Because like I said, personally, I have been treated kind of different, not the whole police department. Don't get me wrong, because I'm an advocate for the police department, but there's situations, I can tell you some personal situation with my mom's house, the situation with this in Contempo, how the things were handled. I can tell you a situation. I was working for the city of Union City, Youth and Family Service. I had about 9 young men, African American and Latino, under my responsibility. These were minors. These were minors working with me. And an incident went down up in Seven Hills, and it ended up at my church. The way that was handled, I felt that it just wasn't handled properly. So I'm going to say technique, technique, how the police you talk to different people. That's important, because there's already not a trust there. There's already people are fearful from you. I get calls all the time. I get calls all the time about young men, African American men, just being pulled over for no reason. Just like Manny said, I don't know what it's about. And I'm going to be honest with you. I have experienced that, not in Union City, but in neighboring city. Does anybody know me? I very seldom look like this. I very seldom dress with a tie and all that. I'm in my Raider gear and all that. So I've been pulled over for no reason and just controlled, and different things on that. But I know how to put my hands on the steering wheel. Didn't nobody have to teach me that. That's just something I just know that you do. Try to be in compliance with the police officer on there. So I just think for our city, training, yes, that can help. Different things on that. I'm all for training, but I think it boils down to the individual. We have to police our police. The police got to police the police, in different ones, because I never felt so disrespected in my life. But, I took it and then I went and talked to superiors. And let me preface this statement by saying this did not happen under the regime of our current police chief or our previous police chief. So let me say that, but I just felt the way that things were handled, it wasn't, it just left a bad feeling in me. And maybe I should have pushed it a little bit longer, more, or got a little bit more involved. It probably could have made a difference because we got to go back down to citizens and panel of accountability. I think that's what's missing is accountability, not only in Union City, but around the whole United States. It's accountability. It's how we treat. And these stories are real, and we can't walk past them. You can't. That what happened with George Floyd, that was real. And then I'm going to make a recommendation, and I have met with the police chief. He had met with the pastors, and they have given us guidelines and new things that they're doing. I think Union City was one of the first cities that used the body cam, on that end. And that's a blessing. That's good. But my question is, even on the body cams, who monitors that? This is something we have to think of. Who monitors the body cams from the police department? I don't know, but I think that's something that the community wants to know. There's a lot of questions out there that people want to know. And I think this is a good forum that we have, but I think we got to get a forum to where people feel comfortable to come and speak, to really speak, to really, really, truly speak their heart, to really speak what they want to do. I haven't backed down. I'm still available, and I hope I'm okay to do this. I want to give out a phone number to where if anybody wants to talk or needs the Pastors Alliance, we are available. Most of you know, years ago, maybe about 6 or 7 years, when we had that racist incident in Union City, we played an important role in getting that resolved on that end. And I believe in doing the right thing. I'm not a politician or none of that. I stand for what's right. I don't care if I'll stand with the police department, the fire department, the city council, this committee. I'm with you guys. You need me for anything, I'm with you in any way that I can help. But we have to have some real talk, some real serious talk. We got to get it to where people feel comfortable. One thing that helped us to resolve the issue that happened in Union City with the department head being a racist, we had real talk. We talked to everybody, and we didn't go and tell names. I'm not into names and all that. I'm into finding out what the problem is. The only way you're going to come with the solution, you really have to find out what the problem is, what the problem. So we know it's trust. We know majority of the young people won't come in and speak and talk to the police department. How can we bridge that gap? You know, I see people of influence. I'm happy to see Manny Allen. Man, I'm gonna tell my age, but her mother was my teacher, and I graduated back in '77.
Hey, Reverend Brown, I'm so sorry to interrupt. We're coming up on the 10-minute mark, just so you know. You have about a minute left.
Okay, so let me just wrap it up. Let me give you this number. I can be reached, and the Pastors Alliance can be reached at area code 510-429-8504. That's 510-429-8504. And I think a recommendation solution, we got to hear from them, and we got to get those leaders, those youth leaders that can be a voice for the youth. Some of them might want to speak. The ones that I speak with, they don't really want to come and say nothing. So I say, okay, I'll be that voice for you. I could be that heartbeat for you. And then I can just be another spoke into the wheel that this subcommittee is just starting on that end, because we need to hear our youth. We have to listen to our youth, our youth, our youth, our youth. Thank you.
So thank you, Pastor Brown. I know that you have given us a couple of other names of your colleagues on the Pastors Alliance that are working with you as a subcommittee in the community on this issue, and we have extended invitations to them, and hopefully they'll be joining us and sharing their thoughts. And I would say to you that I know that you are a trusted leader in the community, and if you have individuals who want to talk with us, please feel free to refer them to us. And if they don't want to talk to us, let us know that you want to come back and share with us what they're saying. We'd like to hear it however we receive it, from you or from them individually. So when the time comes that you feel like you've heard from enough of our youth, that you have something you'd like to share with us, you know how to reach us, and we'd look forward to having you back to share with us, because I think all of what you said is important. So thank you so much for joining us, and we're going to certainly look forward to partnering with you and continuing to learn from you. So thank you, Pastor Brown. Okay, Pastor Brown was a part of the original town hall that the mayor had with the chief of police, and they were partially responsible for why the city council pulled together this subcommittee. Out of that original town hall came many thoughts and ideas that they thought we could dig further into and bring back to the council. So with that, let me continue with member comments. And Jonathan, I think you're next. If you have some thoughts at this point you'd like to share.
Sure, I do. First, I really appreciate the information, the stories, the advice, the recommendations that all the speakers gave us. Manny, to her dedication to education, Nancy, to her building all the bridges in the community that she's built, and Reverend Brown for being the voice of the youth out there. As I was thinking through what they were talking about, kids not being able to be kids, more community voice, more community engagement, more accountability. It reminded me of a time in a different career. I had a friend who was an officer in a different city, and I used to see him at my other work. And he would be out there, I'd say the community served was similar to Dakota. And I'd see him out there quite often as a plainclothes officer, fixing tires, fixing flat tires for kids, fixing bikes, helping the kids with their homework. And I think part of what they're asking for is seeing stuff like that kind of engagement. And I just want to recognize that I've seen it out there. I think I understand partially what you're asking for. I'm sure there's a lot that needs to be shared. That's all.
Thank you, Jonathan. Michelle, do you have any comments you'd like to make at this time?
Very short. Just want to thank our speakers and them giving recommendations and sharing their views and voices, not only from their perspective, but also from many of the youth and the community's perspective as well. One of the things that I heard several times was communication. And that seems to have been coming out quite a bit as how do we communicate? How do we reach out and communicate? So I just want to thank them.
Thank you so much. And you know, the police are a part of our community. They are one of our important stakeholders. And we have invited to our upcoming meeting Sergeant Stan Rodriguez. He is a member of our police organization. He also represents the Police Officers Association. And we thought it would be helpful to put a human face on our police officers, to have this committee hear from them, to hear how they feel when they come into work every day, and also to hear from them what they think is working, what they think is not working, and what they think we ought to change to allow them to do the jobs that they've signed up to and committed to do. So at our next meeting, along with a few other speakers, we will hear from Sergeant Rodriguez. So keep that in mind, because we do want to make our police officers human. We want people to know who they are, to hear from them, and to be able to approach them. So that will be in our plan. And at the end of the month, we have Chief Renetti coming in, and we have heard many questions and suggestions and requests for information about our police organization that we will make sure that Chief Renetti is able to speak to when he comes and visits with us on the 30th. So the committee is still receiving names of people who are available to talk with us. So if any of you have had insights tonight of people that you'd like us to reach out to, we're still open to receiving those comments and input. So at this point, we're going to move into public comment. And this would be an opportunity for anyone of the public who wants to share with us some thoughts, some ideas, some suggestions. And you may remember that you need to hit the hands up button, and Emma will recognize you and bring you on board to talk with us and share your insights and information. So Emma, do you see any hands up?
Yeah, we have two right now. So I'm going to start with the first one, Gina. So Gina, I'm going to unmute your mic. There's going to be a little bit of a lag. And once you're able to speak, if you could say your name and address for the record, and then you will have 3 minutes to speak. So I'm going to unmute your mic now.
Welcome, Gina. Can you hear me? Not yet?
Might take a few seconds.
We got some feedback from people attending that we just need to give it a little bit more time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So have we given enough time?
Yeah, I've promoted her to a speaker. So it's just, I guess, just taking a while.
So you said we had a couple of hands up. Do you think we should move on to our second hands up and maybe come back to Gina?
Yeah, we can try that. All right, Stephanie, I'm going to unmute your mic now, and hopefully there's not this long of a lag. So if you could say your name and address for the record, and then you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
All right, Stephanie should be on now.
Yeah.
Welcome, Stephanie.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yes, thank you.
Oh, my camera's on too. That's fine. Hi, I'm Stephanie. I live on University Drive. I've been a resident of Union City for 4 years. Purchased a home here in 2016 and have been, very happy since then. I'm lucky to say that my only experience with the police has been around like 4th of July season with fireworks and complaints about fireworks. It's very minor compared to a lot of the experiences of other people that we've heard about.
Mhm.
However, I saw a recent post on Nextdoor from someone related to the police department about how they would address fireworks and how when there are other emergencies going on, the police department simply didn't have the capacity to be able to respond to these types of calls. Which is why I also wrote in with the suggestion that if we can create additional departments to be able to respond to these non-emergency, like not as serious crimes, I think that would increase quality of life and just improve everyone's impression of living in Union City. It's apparent that that we don't have the largest amount of crime or homicides as compared to a lot of larger cities, but when it comes to daily life here, I think the police can definitely still do a part, even if it's not necessarily the uniformed officers with all their equipment. There's a lot of thinking out there around how to evolve police departments to become more social service oriented, community service oriented, and there's a lot of writing and options around that to look into. Something else I've looked into are data on how policing is done in Union City. There's a website called policescorecard.org where they've collected data from 2016 to 2018 on police force used and overall data on policing. And from that report, it shows that even though 5% of the Union City population is Black, they make up 18% of arrests made. And even though 18% of the population is Latinx, the Latinx population makes up 40% of arrests made. So this data, in addition to stories that we're hearing from the community itself, I think paints a pretty clear picture that something might be going on. Some disproportionate amount of people of color may be profiled, may be biased against. Hard to believe that all of them might be so inclined to commit crime that they would account for that percentage of arrests. So I'd encourage the analysis and investigation to be able to hold police accountable for any bias or misconduct that might be done towards people of color, just to really get a granular idea of it. And lastly, in the same vein of understanding where that trust and where that bias might be occurring, I do want to emphasize, in addition to hearing from people in different neighborhoods, that just survey neighborhoods, and I understand you'll mostly be hearing from adults, and there's, like respondent biases of who will actually respond to the survey, but you may be able to understand sentiments of people from various neighborhoods and know where to focus on and dig more into what's going on in those certain communities, just to make sure that low-income communities or communities of people of color are not being unfairly impacted by policing policies or just behavior in general. I know I don't have much time. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Your 3 minutes are up.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
Did
you,
you have
Steph.
did you have a concluding thought, Stephanie? You were mid-sentence there. We'll give you a few extra moments. Did you want to finish that thought?
Yeah, the last one is just in helping these low-income communities instead of being police to make sure that those programs are available and known to these communities. I understand we have youth programs and the pastors are helping as well, but I think it could be better spread and better well known, and the impact of it would be great to know as a resident here too, to be able to get involved or know that these communities are being helped by the city as well.
Thank you so much for sharing your perspective and some very great information, and we will make sure that that gets included in our report. Okay,
Thank
Emma,
you.
were you able to get Gina on?
She submitted written comment. I think she's having issues with the speaking. But Lauren, did you want to read that? We do have one other person as well at the moment.
I'll go ahead and read Gina's comment out loud. She sent it in to us, assuming she's having some technical difficulty. Gina says, thankful that you've taken these steps to organize yourselves and to seek community input. As I listen, I'd like to share my thoughts as well. Communication and bridge and trust building takes time, attention, and hopefully will result with better means and ways of accountability. Regarding accountability, wondering if you've provided any data regarding police activity, arrests, stopping, traffic checks, and any data related to race interactions. Exactly as Pastor Brown brings up, also, speaking of the UCPD being undermanned, what is the demographics of info of the UCPD? What is the UCPD budget? Build on strengths and experience. Important to name and determine which of those former building foundational blocks, as Mr. Jaramillo suggested. Absolutely necessary to make intentional improvements. In a way, no need to reinvent the wheel, though, as always, there's now more urgency to improve and fine-tune messaging and our actions. So thank you, Gina.
Thank you, Lauren, and those comments will be added to the website if any of the committee members want to revisit them. So Emma, you said there's one more hand that has been raised?
Yes, at the moment we have one more. Justine, I'm going to unmute your mic. There's going to be a lag. And if you could state your name and address for the record, and then you will have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi. Do you hear me?
Hi, Justine. We can hear you.
Hi. So my name is Justine, and I live on Dolores Drive in Union City. I've been a resident of Union City for the last 3 years. So I wanted to bring up the question of why the Union City police budget takes up such a large amount of the city budget. It takes up 61%. I think the person who commented was asking before me was asking about that, and that's actually higher than our neighboring city of Fremont. And based on what the pastor said and what Manny said, thank you for your thoughts. There's clearly need in our community for things besides the police. The police are clearly causing harm on our youth, on our low-income population, even though they do cause harm in all communities. I myself am an East Asian relative with class privilege, and I have experienced police violence. So why are we funding so much of our city's budget towards a program that clearly has time and time has shown again does cause harm? Someone earlier mentioned the police scorecard. Union City has received an F from that police scorecard. There's been 2 deadly force incidents, and 0 of the civilian complaints have ever been ruled in the civilian favor, which means that clearly accountability is not something that the police department is worried about. regarding the needs of our police, regarding how the expansion of our police department. Someone mentioned that maybe we need more departments within our police department, and I want to urge this committee and the city council to reconsider that and to really think about why we are so focused on reforming the police department, which, by the way, has been happening for so many years to little result, and why aren't we just taking down the system, or at least defunding a lot of them and a lot of this, and focusing the money that our city desperately needs into programs that have actually been shown to be effective. That's all.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your comments. We have certainly heard several questions about the police budget and accountability, and I think, as I mentioned in an earlier comment, we will have the police chief here with us. We'll make sure that that's on his list of things to talk with us about. Thank you again for all of your comments and your interest and your feedback. I see the committee is taking lots of notes. We'll have a lot of good information to draw from as we synthesize this and come up with a set of recommendations. So at this time, we're going to move to the good of the order. This is an opportunity for any member of the committee to share a thought that has come up since they have heard the comments or had the opportunity to speak, and to share any closing thoughts they'd like to have with us before we wrap up tonight's meeting. So, Melissa, may I just start with you, and we'll go around again and see if there are any comments that anyone wants to make at this point.
Sure. Thank you, Vice Mayor. My biggest thought right now is that I'm really looking forward to hearing from Sergeant San Rodriguez and Chief Fernetti about, what is and isn't working for them as far as community relations and community policing. And I would also really love to see all the community's questions answered. We've had different people asking different questions about police budget, about, what are the statistics as far as race and who gets stopped and who gets arrested and what percentage it is and those kinds of things. So I just want to make sure that we're gathering all these questions kind of into maybe a list for Chief Fernetti to make sure that we get those answers for the community.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you. Pat?
I just want to thank all the speakers for their thoughtful comments, suggestions. And also I noticed that more people are attending our meeting, and thank you. And we encourage more people to attend and to listen. And that's all, Emily. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Jonathan, any closing thoughts?
I think all I want to say is I appreciate the speakers and the commenters who spoke with us and who shared their information elsewise, I guess, through the website. The raw stories that they shared, the recommendations and the considerations and their concerns. It's really appreciated. Will help us with our task moving forward.
Thanks, Jonathan. Michelle, any closing thoughts on your part?
No, I just basically want to thank the community for providing their voice, and that's what we're looking for. And I'm hoping that more of the community will come out and give their voice to us. So I'm hoping to hear more voices from the community. I think maybe also too, is there a way, and I know it was on the website, but can we express how people can actually see the comments that have been made?
Yeah.
Is there a way to tell them?
Do you want me to chime in?
We'll say that as we let her finish her comments, and then we'll remind people where they can see that information. Go ahead, Michelle.
No, that was one of the main things, is just trying to see if they can see that we are capturing that information and where it's being put, so they can see what has been expressed And then they also know that they can give their comments as well, and seeing that we are taking that information and taking it seriously. Thanks.
Okay, so Lauren, do you want to remind people again where the website is and how they might send a comment or fill out the information that you have there for them?
Yeah, so there's two ways you can send feedback to the committee. You can email committee staff, which is myself and Emma, who's on the call, at communications@unioncity.org. So if you email us in, we will capture your comments, place them on the website, but also read them to the committee, show them to the committee. The other way would be to go to www.unioncity.org/PCE committee. So it's a short link. It stands for Policing and Community Engagement Committee, so PCE committee. And if you just scroll down, there's a tab that says, I think it says written comments. You just click it and it'll drop down everybody's comments that have come in so far. We try to update it once a day or every couple days.
Okay, so thank you so much. I just want to add my thank you to the committee for joining us, for sharing with us. We have received a lot of excellent comments from the community, ideas, suggestions. I would encourage you to keep them coming. If you heard something tonight that reminded you of a thought that you didn't get to share, please take advantage of the opportunity to write into us, or certainly join us next week and speak with us in person. We are very serious about creating a space for the community to share openly with us, because we are committed to building that trust again with the police organization and figuring out what we need to do to make that happen. So thank you all for joining us. We'll meet again here on July 23rd. We have a meeting scheduled for the 30th. We haven't yet published the August dates, but it is our thought that we'll probably be meeting through August, and we're hoping that by early September we'll be able to visit with the council and share with them what we've heard, what we learned, and what recommendations we think would be helpful to move us forward in this space. So thanks again to all of you for joining us. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. Good night.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.